Hello friends, welcome to my channel. And today, we're going to learn the entire history of New York City in under 10 minutes. Let's do it. 6,500 years ago, glaciers carved out the bedrock of what would become Manhattan. The Ice Age ended around 10,000 BC, and the area was quickly taken over by the Lenape people who would fish, hunt, and farm in the region for thousands of years. This is all pretty standard stuff for most histories. But then came the Dutch. They arrived in 1624 and claimed the territory for the Dutch West India Company. They named it New Netherland and established a small trading post on Manhattan Island, which they called New Amsterdam. The Dutch didn't really have much interest in governing or developing the settlement, so it was largely ignored and allowed to develop naturally. In 1664, the English invaded and seized control of New Amsterdam, renaming it New York in honor of the Duke of York, who would later become King James II. As a result of this change in leadership, the city became a royal colony within the much larger province of New York. The colony saw rapid growth thanks to a booming fur trade and a large influx of settlers from England, Scotland, Ireland, and Germany. Slavery was also introduced during this time, with the first slaves arriving in 1626. Initially, the colonists grew wheat, barley, and corn, but these failed due to soil erosion and insect infestation. So they turned to cultivating cash crops like tobacco, cotton, and indigo on plantations worked by slaves. During the American Revolutionary War, New York was a battleground between the Americans and the British. In 1776, the British seized control of the city and used it as a military base for much of the war. However, after the war, the population of New York began to shift. Many of the wealthy landowners who had supported the British left the city and moved to Canada or England, while many poor people who had fought in the war stayed and took over the abandoned plantations. As the 19th century began, New York continued to grow rapidly. In 1823, the Erie Canal opened, connecting the city to the Great Lakes and giving New Yorkers access to cheap transportation routes for their goods. This led to an explosion in manufacturing and trade, making New York the center of American commerce. The city's population grew from 200,000 in 1830 to 500,000 by 1850. New York was now the largest city in the Western Hemisphere. But not everyone was happy with the rapid pace of industrialization and urbanization. In 1848, a group of utopian socialists, known as the Communist Association of New York, formed a new political party dedicated to abolishing private property and establishing a society based on communal ownership. Their ideas were radical and were suppressed by the authorities, but the Communist Association laid the groundwork for future labor movements in America. By the late 1800s, New York was the dominant financial center of the United States. Wall Street had become synonymous with American capitalism, and the stock market crash of 1873 led to the Panic of 1873, a nationwide financial crisis that affected the entire country. However, New York quickly recovered and its economy continued to boom. In 1885, the New York State Board of Regents adopted a new constitution for the city, creating a strong mayor and a professional civil service. This marked the beginning of the modern era of New York City government and set the stage for the city's next century of growth. At the start of the 20th century, New York was a city of immigrants. Between 1880 and 1920, nearly 4 million Europeans came through Ellis Island, making New York the most ethnically diverse city in the world. With such a large influx of new residents, New York needed more housing. So skyscrapers were built to maximize space and density. The first skyscraper was the Home Insurance Building, completed in 1885. By 1920, New York had the tallest building in the world, the Chrysler Building at 1046 feet. Of course, these buildings required new technologies to bring water up to the top floors, like the development of the electric elevator. And New Yorkers took full advantage of this new technology. By 1930, New York had become the world capital of shopping, with stores like Macy's and Gimbel's offering the latest fashions and consumer goods. Radio and television would soon make shopping even easier, and New York was the center of this technological revolution. The first transatlantic radio broadcast was made from New York in 1906, and the first coast-to-coast television broadcast was made from New York in 1936. But not everyone was able to enjoy the prosperity of New York. In the 1930s, the Great Depression hit the city hard. causing widespread unemployment and poverty. Many of the city's immigrants were among the hardest hit, and ethnic neighborhoods like Little Italy and Chinatown suffered greatly. To make matters worse, in 1934, a series of violent race riots broke out in Harlem, resulting in dozens of deaths and hundreds of injuries. Despite these challenges, New York continued to grow throughout the mid-20th century. After World War II, the city experienced a baby boom, and its population reached nearly 8 million by 1950. The construction of new highways and bridges made it easier than ever for people to get around the city. And New York's cultural attractions like its museums, theaters, and music venues drew visitors from all over the world. But with this growth came new problems. The influx of new residents put a strain on the city's infrastructure, leading to overcrowding, traffic congestion, and a shortage of affordable housing. In the 1960s, the city's fiscal crisis came to a head, and New York was on the verge of bankruptcy. The New York Stock Exchange even closed for 4 days because of the crisis. However, the city was bailed out by a combination of federal, state, and local funding. In the 1970s, the city experienced a crime wave that led to a mass exodus of middle-class residents. But the crime rate has since fallen dramatically, and New York has once again become one of the safest cities in the United States. Since the 1980s, New York has been dominated by just two political forces, the Liberal Democratic Party and the Conservative Republican Party. Mayor Ed Koch ushered in a new era of prosperity for the city in the 1970s and 80s. He was succeeded by David Dinkins, the city's first black mayor. Giuliani then swept into office on a platform of law and order in 1993. He was succeeded by Michael Bloomberg, who served 7 terms as mayor. Today, New York City is home to over 8.8 million people and is one of the most densely populated cities in the world. It is also one of the most racially and ethnically diverse cities on the planet, with over 800 languages spoken throughout the 5 boroughs. New York is also home to some of the most iconic landmarks in the world, including the Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, and Central Park. The city is a major hub for finance, culture, and art, and is home to some of the world's best museums, theaters, and music venues. And that's the end of part 1. If you want to see part 2, where I cover the last 600 years of New York City history, please let me know by leaving a comment below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.